Good morning. Today I am continuing to work on Perfect Base 4. I'm going to standardize the foundations for the external wall and maybe put down some of the sandstone that I'm going to use for the wall itself. Not too much, because inevitably some of it is going to be off, but just the foundations. Anyway, this is boring Minecraft news for adults, and today's episode is Returns and Refrains. If you think the phrase, "I'm not racist," has ever proven someone not to be a racist, get out. You do not belong here. Now that they're gone, you've noticed how I said the title of the episode in the episode instead of pulling it right out of my ass while uploading the video to YouTube? Yeah, that's happened. Today's first story is about Andrew Finch, a man who was killed as a result of a swatting attack in December. It begins with two Call of Duty players who were having an argument after a game. The first player contacted a frequent swatter, and the second player taunted him with a false address in Wichita, Kansas. The swatter did what swatters do and called the local police department, claiming they were a dangerous person at the given address. It was a call designed to provoke a high-intensity SWAT response on the second player's house. A SWAT unit arrived at the false address and shot Andrew Finch, 28-year-old man who was not a criminal and had nothing to do with an argument over a video game. Swatting isn't a prank, it's a crime, and I've done this before, haven't I? Yeah, I did this in April. Alright, I'm not gonna make you watch an old episode, but, so here's the quote. Swatters fake police reports to make a SWAT team assault their victim's house in the hopes that the SWAT team will shoot their victim. Doxers and swatters are literally trying to get people killed. There was an intent to murder. There was someone who picked up a metaphorical gun. There was someone who pointed that gun at an innocent person. And there was a police officer who pulled a very literal trigger. And now Andrew Finch is dead for no reason. Next story. So New York, San Francisco, and Philadelphia sued the Department of Defense to address the DoD's failures in connecting service member criminal records to national background check systems for gun buyers. This comes after an Air Force veteran killed 26 people and wounded 20 more in a Texas church last November. Previously, the former airman was convicted on 2 charges of domestic abuse by a general court-martial. However, those convictions were never added to the FBI's National Criminal Information Center database, which is used to run firearm background checks. An internal report by the Department of Defense found that the DoD had almost 24% of their offenders who were not added to the database. And I mean, this is fine. Let's have lawsuits to have the DoD get its shit together. Folks who oppose gun control have told me for a long time that they would prefer that we... Come on. I'll get you. Come on. You fucking piece of shit. There we go. They have told me for a long time that the best form of gun control is to enforce laws on the book instead of making new laws. That seems reasonable. Whenever laws outstrip enforcement power, the law is enforced arbitrarily. Enforcing existing laws is an obvious middle ground solution. It's a compromise. Liberals generally want gun control, and conservatives want existing laws enforced. You'd have to be an idiot or an utter childish contrarian to want the background check system to ignore violent crimes committed by service members. And I'm not going to jerk you around because we're all adults here. GunsMagazine.com had a scathing, several weeks late editorial on the issue, produced by the editorial fiat of an utter child contrarian. A brief checklist of the article. Let's see, whataboutism for urban crime rates. Bill de Blasio is an overtly socialist Democrat mayor. Enforcement of the law is one of 1,000 cuts to gun rights. And hang with me on this one. If the law had been enforced, the law-abiding citizen who stopped the shooter would not have had his gun, while the criminal doing the shooting would have. Their premise, not mine. They feel that if the law were enforced as written, the guy who should not have had a gun would have been on a shooting spree, and the guy who legally had a gun would not have been able to stop him. It's ridiculous, and that's all just in the opening paragraphs. I don't think this idiot is really representative of responsible gun owners. All the same. Come on, guys. Come on. Really? Next article. Gerrymandering in North Carolina. A panel of federal judges ruled on the 9th that North Carolina's voting districts were drawn up to preserve a Republican majority in the House of Representatives. The Republican-controlled state Congress was ordered to redraw the maps, or the judges' panel would. Out of 13 representative seats the state has in Washington, 10 went to Republicans, despite only 53% of the state being Republican. I have done this too. A year ago, for Republicans in Alabama, Republicans in Wisconsin, and fucking North Carolina. Again? Really? Look, for those of you who haven't been following me for the past 11 months, and Google says that's every human on Earth and all but 16 Russian spam bots, gerrymandering is when you take a population that's 8 million Democrats, 4 million Republicans, and divide them into one district of 4.2 million Democrats and two districts split between 1.9 million Democrats and 2 million Republicans, instead of a more representative Democrat-Republican split. The first gives Democrats one district and Republicans two, even though Republicans are a minority. The second is representative of the 2-to-1 advantage of Democrats in the general populace. You see, the fair split would actually force Republicans to change their policies to reflect the views of their voters. The first one only wants Republicans to maintain their power despite what the majority of North Carolina's voters want. Maryland has Democrats doing this, so there's your both sides bone. But let's be real honest adults with our big, honest, unpleasant truth pants. It's mostly Republicans, and it strikes to the heart of our democracy. Stop it. Don't give me that, oh, but the other guy is doing it too stuff. If you feel gerrymandering is bad, say gerrymandering is bad and I won't vote for people who do it. Then push folks to find a federal level solution which says something like, hey, an XY split of voters should yield an XY representative split. I'll be fine with a level of corruption that's on par with rounding errors. Of course, we know the sociopathic ideologues we elect to office don't want a solution to these sorts of undemocratic conflicts because they always think they can win them, regardless of their party. If you don't mind because it gives your ideology more of the representation you think it deserves, then you don't believe in democracy or rule from the people. And trust me, the people you think represent you won't either. I'm a cheap bastard and I like comics, so I buy comics out of the discount bin. This is Discount Comics. Before I get into it, I found one more issue of Burning Fields from 2 episodes ago. It's actually issue number 2. I read it and it's still all shit. You could not believe how little impact on the final issue this one has. I felt like I didn't miss anything reading the last one first, and the more earlier issues I read, the more certain I am that I was totally right about that. Anyway, this week I'm reading Miracle Man, Book 1, Issue number 2. Story, the original writer. It literally says that right here. The original writer. Art by Gary Leach. So, what? This is the series that everyone whined for Marvel to get the rights to? This is the one that everybody wanted to reprint? This random collection of grimdark tropes? I suppose it's fitting that Alan Moore's early work reads like a high-quality parody of Alan Moore's best work, but I mean, I haven't made a career out of reimagining bygone superheroes with rape, murder, and tits nailed to them, but I guess Alan Moore did. These things are facile, and their only real depth is in the awesome renderings of Gary Leach or Alan Davis. I've done some research, but I'm still a little unclear on who did the art for this thing. In retrospect, restylizing Atlas comic characters, Superman, a motley crew of Victorian-era novel characters, and Miracle Man with a bingo card of drug addiction, sexual imagery, ultraviolence, and, of course, sexual violence before giving up and ironically worshipping a lizard god and saying that all other comics are shit. That's not a half-bad career arc. I mean, good on you, Alan Moore. Yeah, just respect the game. You know, people say that the paint-by-numbers mimicry of Watchmen in the 90s missed the point of Moore's work, but the more of Moore's writing I read, the less I think that's true. I think the imitators really nailed it. TLDR, Miracle Man was contrived shit before contrived shit was cool. It doesn't even rise above its imitators. That felt a little mean. Cleansing in its truthfulness, but a little mean. This week we are getting a bonus Disco Comics in honor of me not making the other parts of this episode long enough. Imagine that, me not being able to fill an episode. So we're talking Mosaic from Marvel Comics of all places. Written by Geoffrey Thorne with art by Bruno Oliveira and Kerry Randolph. I literally pick Disco Comics from a bin. I totally judge those books by their covers. Sometimes I do go by their writers. Hello, Andrew Wheeler's Another Castle, I'll get to you. And sometimes I go by the notoriety of the title. Hello, Bitch Planet, I'll get to you too. But usually it's the cover. The cover of Mosaic number 6 is main character Morris Sackett surrounded by members of the public holding up smartphones to take his picture. Each screen has a different version of Morris with different ages, genders, and ethnicities. Each screen sees him in a different way. It was intriguing, so I got it in another 2 issues. The 7th had a picture of Mosaic falling into the Inhumans. The 8th issue just had him doing a walk away into a background of jagged images of other people. Marvel Comics do this thing where they bring you up to speed on the first page, so the first 2 words of the story of Morris Sackett, aka Mosaic, are basketball star. And Mosaic's a black dude, so the only words which could have made me regret picking up the comic more at that exact point would have been professional skateboarder. But it's good. Sackett's an inhuman and a reluctant hero who can inhabit other people's bodies, and in doing so, share memories with them in whatever ways are convenient for the plot and his character arc. When he's not in someone's body, he's an invisible, intangible energy form, where he can only be seen by some superhumans, and he can see certain energies in whatever ways are convenient for the plot. What? It's still a comic. Mosaic's story is pretty straightforward. His dad's affiliated with Big Bad Brand Corporation. He's trying to become a better person, which kind of leads to him being a hero, and then the Inhumans need help with their thing. I don't know if you're aware of this, but because mutants and the X-Men are owned by Fox and the rest of Marvel's over at Disney, there's been kind of a phasing out of mutants and a phasing in of the Inhumans. If you don't know about Inhumans, they're the RC Cola of mutants and they live on the moon. So naturally, in the comics, the Inhumans and mutants are in conflict, and Marvel is introducing a few new, cool Inhuman characters, including Mosaic. Thorne has laid down a really solid foundation for the character here, despite half an issue being dedicated to that big crossover. And I'm really looking forward to the... Oh, I'm literally holding the last issues of his comic. And on a more personal note, we had our second game of Planet Mercenary last week. It went well, with the crew making their first delivery. While they were negotiating new contracts, they got an emergency call from the Oathland Defense Forces about a hijacked way station and system. Terraport area denial exclusion wasn't approved, so they were the closest ship. After negotiating with the players over which the 2 officers should go, Chaplain Hobbs and NPC Quartermaster Oberleth boarded the station and engaged the pirates. Meanwhile, one of the pirates punched through the TAD and tried to sabotage the annihilation plan of the Bradu's Vindicator. Dr. Targoth and the NPC Captain Bradu stopped them, but a final pirate escaped with the goods on their ship. The crew got half their pay, they cleared the station, only had a few casualties, and they continued on to their next mission of providing security for an archaeological dig for one of Targoth's friends. The next session will probably actually be a stop-off for... Did I get this right? Give me a second. It'll probably be a stop-off for repairs while Hobbs takes on some illicit cargo. I think it's gone well, but I've had a few problems. My players don't want to spend hours in combat, especially in a combat-heavy game, but I think I can recover these blocks here. I should have never dug down in the first place, but, you know. But they still want to micromanage combat. So, like, how do I balance that? I was supposed to introduce 2 NPCs, but between doing all of the 3 in-house NPCs, I was just too exhausted to do the other 2. I've been stripping out the armor of enemy squads, but they're still really tanky for first-level characters. I've just been taking the armor off so that combat can go a little faster. I don't want round after round of combat. It seems like there's not a knack for combat except for doing something clever and roleplay. And if characters don't do that, it feels like a slugfest. Despite the merits of the system, Planet Mercenary isn't our system. I like the abstraction, the tone, the destructible characters, but I think my players are slightly too serious, and too invested in characters for that to really work for us. I mean, I think I've had some fun, but I just don't think it's working. If anyone has any ideas about how to change horses midstream for a role-playing game, please let me know. Anyway, I'm just about out of time, so until I get a good sign-off,